Yeah.
Hello everyone and welcome to another electrifying but primarily hydrocarbon powered episode of Full Throttle on Unprecedented TV, where we dive head on into the challenges facing British drivers and much more besides. I'm Paul Naylor, Communications Director for the Alliance of British Drivers, and today we're talking with blogger and YouTube podcaster, and I'm sure you've heard of him, Geoff Buys Cars.
Right, and it's me. And I'm Brian Gregory, Policy Director of ABD. Just a quick word, Geoff has created an enormous amount of online content highly relevant to road users, ranging from technological surveillance, the ideologically motivated mandatory phase-out of internal combustion engine vehicles, the suppression of the availability of conventional additives to improve fuel efficiency and fuel emissions, battery electric vehicle technology and their residuals. So we're going to have an interesting session today. So buckle up. This is Full Throttle.
Installed to protect both you and me in places that we weren't. The first to arrive were the cameras installed to protect both you and me in places that we weren't that threatened, and yet the people didn't see. And what followed were traffic restrictions to keep the roads quiet and clean. The maths didn't add up, nor the science, but still, the people didn't see. And next came the 15-minute neighbourhoods to make our lives easier, decreed. To some, it seemed like restrictions, but still, the people didn't see. And then came the digital ID, so convenient, easy and free. Your life in one chip on a mainframe, and still, the people didn't see. The cars they sold were electric, all wired to the government PC, and they switched off the driving on Sundays, and still, the people didn't see. And the banks moved their money to digital, and the government banned cash the next week, and the ability to fly was restricted, and still, the people didn't see. They linked up your money and profile to the ID on the government PC, and connected it to social media, and still, the people didn't see. And then came a new cure, a new virus, safe and effective and free. They linked these jabs to your profile and connected the government PC. And when the people were locked in their cities, policed by their digital ID, unable to visit their loved ones, now, finally, the people can see. Restricted and tracked with no money. To go further, a permit you'll need, contained in your digital city. Oh, why did the people not see? These steps they've sold us as progress never looked to be quite what they seemed. And if you don't ask the questions in protest, then your children will never know. Free. There's no adverts on this video, so...
That was pretty powerful stuff there. So we've introduced him as Geoff Buys Cars, but obviously he has a name. This is Geoff Thompson. Hello, Geoff.
Yeah.
So, Geoff, tell us a bit about your background and how did you get into this line of work?
Which line of work?
I suppose your podcasts, fighting for the motorists and fighting for freedom, I suppose.
Yeah.
I know it doesn't really feel like a line of work. I just sort of ended up doing this by accident. I've always worked in and around cars. Cars have always been a passion of mine, and sort of started buying a lot of old cars and said to myself, do you know what? I'm having some fun adventures here. I should probably document this. I should maybe make a YouTube channel. And I threatened it for years. And then eventually the kids were a little bit older, and I had a canoe that I was going to sell. And my wife said to me, well, sell the canoe, and then whatever car you buy with the proceeds of the canoe, that's the start of your YouTube channel, isn't it? So So that's what I did. So the original goal of the YouTube channel was to become another one of these buying and selling and trading accounts. And I was going to try and work my way from a canoe up to a Porsche. And the idea was sound, and I could have done it, but a number of things happened, including COVID landing the year after. I started in November, and then COVID was the next year.
Yeah.
And the very first car that I bought with the proceeds of the canoe was an absolute bag of. Well, I'm not sure I could say it on the channel. So it kind of went sideways from day one.
It was a bit of a clunker then.
It was a total clunker, yeah. So, I mean, the idea was that I think I sold my canoe for about 600 quid. And I was like, great, if I can buy a car, do a bit of work to it and then make a profit, then boom, we're into the next car and we'll be in a Porsche in no time. I did the maths on the very first car and I lost about 350 quid. So that wasn't it. But then different things started happening and I started making different videos with different cars. And over time, and perhaps we'll get into this later on, but I don't even want the Porsche anymore. I've got no interest at all now in owning a Porsche. The last 5 years have changed me completely, as they should have changed everyone. And you take another look at what's important to you in life and what actually matters. And owning an expensive sports car is extremely far down the list for me these days.
Yeah.
You can't drive it anywhere.
Yeah, so where you find me this evening is I should actually be doing another John O'Groats challenge with Lee the Mapmaster against his EV. We're supposed to be in John O'Groats this evening to do the challenge tomorrow. But we had a conversation with each other the other day. I texted him jokingly and I was like, do you know what? I really don't want to do this. And then he texted me back and said, well, are you serious? Because I don't really want to do it either. And we can't be bothered. That is the truth. The roads in the UK are now such a state that we don't even want to do what is supposed to be an enjoyable challenge. We don't want to drive all the way up there, and then we don't want to have to do John O'Groats all the way down. I was in London the other night. We went to Harry Potter World for my little lad. It was his birthday, so we had the evening there. On the way back, we had the M40 closed at one point, down to one lane in about 3 different places. The M25 was closed, the M5 was closed, and there were signs telling us where all the diversions were. You can't go anywhere anymore, so we don't want to do it. I mean, there's enough content in the fact that we're 2 YouTubers that get paid for making videos, and even we do not want to drive in the UK anymore. It's scary where we're at. But yeah, that's a rough introduction, a bit around the houses as to why I'm sat talking to you in a transit van.
Well, I think we've all arrived at the same place by different routes, but I think all of us just feel that it's intolerable the way we're being treated by this government. Not just this government, previous governments. It's a cumulative thing, really. And we are just milch cows for them to bleed dry, and heap more and more restrictions on us to make life more and more unpleasant and more tedious as a driver, as you say. Time was. I just got wasn't a new, but I got a 4 Series BM coupe, and I took it for a drive out from where I live up into Durham area, from Durham into Northumberland and back down. And there was hardly any traffic on the roads. The only thing I saw was a few sheep in Northumberland. Yeah. And it was brilliant. But trying to do that now, getting from the Durham through Durham and north, I might still have the overland bit where there's one vehicle every 20 miles or something. But it's the getting back, and all the major routes are just congested, not properly maintained, littered with roadworks, ridiculously low speed limits, replacing barriers at a speed that bloody ice melts faster than the rate they're working. Yeah. It's just pathetic. Anyway, coming back from London the other night, these multiple miles of one-lane motorway, and there's all signs saying, the speed limit and the restrictions are here for the workforce. There's no workforce there. There's no work being done at all at any of these roads.
You never see anybody up.
You never see them. You never see
them. If you do, they're leaning on their shovels.
Yeah.
You've even got a shovel. Yeah. Anyway, listen, come on. Let's get on to the main meat of the thing now. So, the question I was going to ask is, given the current backdrop, what should UK road users do to make the best of a currently very poor political treatment by successive governments? And if we start with the sort of things that I guess are really rankling, I mean, the first thing is excessive, overbearing technological surveillance. I mean, why do we need to be followed with such, what's the word I'm looking for, zealotry? And, you know, because like you say, the cameras are supposed to make the roads safer, but looking at the statistics, they're not making the roads any safer. They're just earning lots of money for interested parties, shall I say. But the casualty rate's not going down. And in fact, if you look at the last 10 years or so, and you actually look at the statistics, speed awareness courses and prosecutions have gone like that, and the casualties have gone flat or slightly increasing. So all this effort and all this money that's supposed to be devoted to making us safer is not doing that. It's just draining money out of motorists' pockets. And road safety's gone by the by. It's all about, you know.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I've spent the last sort of 5 years arguing this on my YouTube channel now, and I don't think anything's going to change. You know, the cameras are in and they're making money out of it, and the cameras in and they're controlling us. As soon as you remove that white rectangle on the front of your car and that orange rectangle on the back of your car, then all of it goes away. People just need to start realizing that that's basically all they need to do. You ain't going to do anything with the petition. You ain't going to do anything by writing to your MP. You ain't going to do anything by lobbying MPs. None of it's going to work. So the only thing you can do is remove your number plates.
Mass civil disobedience.
That's a good idea. I wish I'd done that the last 2 times that I've got 3 points. Yeah.
It works.
Yeah.
But it's ridiculous, and nobody's policing the enforcers. You know, I mean, one of my ABD colleagues, Paul, knows him. He's sort of a jobbing financial consultant. He goes in companies that are in financial difficulties and helps them to turn things around. So he gets a series of assignments, and they're all over the country. And he travels from the northeast area where I also live, and he can be going down to Milton Keynes, all sorts of places. And on his way down fairly recently, the main route south, and I don't use it anymore now, is the A19, and it goes down from Teesside all the way down through the 168 and joins the A1M, just sort of south of somewhere, slightly north of Boroughbridge, I think it is. And it's just littered with speed cameras. The one that got him, they'd actually backed this vehicle so far into a hedge that it was barely visible. And, at the ACPO, which are worth nothing guidelines, or NPCC, or whatever they call themselves now, the guidelines say that the vehicle should be visible and liveried, and the officer should be in plain view with the enforcement device. And it was neither of those things. So it's, it's just that. And not improving casualty rates at all. It makes me seethe.
I got very little to add. I'm done pulling punches on this now.
Yeah.
Like I said, you can't do anything about it. It doesn't matter. They don't care. They don't follow their own rules that they've written. They're not interested in making the roads safer. They're only interested in generating money. And the only thing that you can do now is take your number plate off. It's as simple as that. Nothing else is going to work. So people need to be doing that en masse, because we've just seen, a protest of 3 million is ignored. Protest of 4 million is ignored. You write to your MP, you're ignored. You can lobby all you want. Nothing's going to change until people start making some sort of active change in their own life. And for me, take my number plates off. All goes away.
Yeah. And there is, I think that route is certainly, because I think it's also going to come to that with digital ID as well. I'll come back to that later. People have just got to say, no, we're not doing it. Take your digital ID and stick it where the sun don't shine. But as I say, we'll come back to that. What was I going to say though? I've lost my thread now. We were talking about. Yes.
I like podcasts because I don't hold back on podcasts. I say things
no, absolutely not. No,
I'm not supposed to say on a YouTube channel. We've tried it all. Well, we spent the last 5 years trying to get people to wake up, trying to join different things, join this organisation, join that organisation, join that WhatsApp group. None of it works and nobody makes any progress. Just taking number plates off. That's where we're at now.
Yeah, well, I think there is another alternative route, and if we can convince the one existing political party that seems prepared to sort of disrupt the consensus that we need to make a quantum change on road safety, then we might be able to improve this, because you look at the statistics and the illegal speed is maybe a 3 to 5% cause of accidents. And the main causes are fail to look but did not see, fail to judge the path or speed of converging road user. And they sort of are 2/3, if not more, of the precipitating factors. And the simple thing is that driving it's a fairly simple exercise, but it's based on 1, observation, 2, anticipation, 3, planning, and 4, execution. You know, you observe what's going on around you, you anticipate the likely and sometimes extremely unlikely activity, actions of other road users. You plan how to get your way out of any difficult situations, then you execute them. And it's an iterative process, goes on all the time. If you hobble the first factor in that observation, then it doesn't matter. Everything else you might as well just chuck it out the window. And I've been on a BBC thing today about 20 mile an hour limits, and basically I said, look, do you think you can drive safely if somebody obscures your speedo? And he looked a bit blank at me, and I said, well, let me ask you the second question. Do you think you can drive safely if somebody obscures your windscreen? And then I think he began to understand that, if you're not actually observing what's going on and taking really, intense interest in that, you're an accident waiting to happen. But we've thrown all that out because the only thing you need to do to drive safely is not exceed a number on a tin plate.
Yeah, well, we live in a world where everything has to be simplified, and if it can be simplified, then it can be monetized. The problem that you've got is if you were able to get to one politician and get them to understand that speed is not about safety, then suddenly they'd lose a ton of revenue from all the speed cameras. Because with all the 20 mile an hour limits, they know it all. They've read all the surveys that show it doesn't work. They've seen all the consultations that say the locals don't want it. And what have we got? We've still got 20 mile an hour limits. So even if you reach someone in government and are able to turn one MP and get him to go, oh, actually, you know what? Speed isn't the problem. You're still not going to change anything because it's generating too much money.
Yeah. It's a pretty intractable problem, but I think we have to approach it, but on a number of routes, and it may be a combination of civil disobedience and lobbying.
It wouldn't be so bad if the money that was generated went back to improving the road surfaces, but it's not. They're trying to find
point to where it's gone. All that money for road tax as well, all your road tax, all the tax on everything. Nobody can tell you where it's gone. But as well, nobody can tell me a single thing that has improved on behalf of motorists in the last 10 years. So there's nobody working on behalf of the motorists and achieving anything.
No. Well, we're spending such a lot giving people who come across the channel illegally, free phones and accommodation and all the rest of it, isn't it? It's that's certainly not going to help if you're draining your finances with inappropriate activities like that, should we say?
Brian, are you ex-police?
No.
Okay.
I'm not.
It's the other gentleman that's ex-police, isn't it? The problem is you're trying to work within a corrupted framework. The framework that, and I appreciate that many organisations like to play by the rules, but the rules are not being played by when things come down the track at us. So, this is why I'm totally giving up now on lobbying and the political system and all the Facebook groups and everything, because nothing's going to achieve anything, because it never has done. This is the problem. So the only way that you're going to get any sort of progress on any of this is by having a mass of drivers on board who are willing to jump when you say jump. This is the problem. I can't see any of it changing. They're making too much money from speed cameras. They're making too much money from prosecuting people at 20 mile an hour. They're gaining control with all of this digital ID and these AI cameras now. How do you get rid of them lawfully? How do you get rid of them operating within the governmental and legal system? How would you actually change any of it?
Well, I think you have to start from where is all this coming from, and I think Charlotte's got the slide. We've got that slide that comes from Absolute Zero, the table. Essentially, all of the policy, I believe, is being driven by this crazy pursuit of net zero. And to achieve net zero, there's a document called Absolute Zero by UK Fires. You can find UK Fires, just Google UK Fires, and there's a chart in that document, which is a sort of blueprint for how government can achieve net zero goals by 2050. You can see there's like a list of various things, and the top one says road vehicles. By 2050, we're supposed to see a 40% reduction in road traffic using these policies, which basically means make road use more and more unpleasant, so less and less people want to do it. When we've had typically we've had growth 2, 3, 4, 5% in traffic volumes every year. This is talking about contracting them by 40%. Well, you'll only do that with some sort of mandatory stick, because otherwise people are going to keep doing what they've been doing, and road use will just keep going upwards irrespective of all the restrictions, lower limits and throttle points and all the rest of it. But this is talking about a step change. But I mean, as you go further down this thing, flying, they're talking about shutting all major airports by 2050.
There is a shortcut to achieving all of this. Do you know what that is?
Shut the country down.
Get rid of all the people.
Yeah, well, maybe not. That's certainly if you listen to some of the stuff that comes out of the UN, World Economic Forum and whatnot, it smacks very much of that sort of pseudo eugenicist kind of approach.
Well, we clearly don't believe in getting rid of all the people, because we're welcoming people in that shouldn't be coming.
Well, we don't. Yeah. Coming back to this chart, I mean, the other thing is that there'll be no commercial shipping. So if you fancy going on a cruise, you've had that, but also no commercial sea freight. And for a country that imports almost all of its products, how the hell are we going to achieve that without crashing the economy? And at the very bottom one, no fossil fuel use. Well, it may have escaped these people's notice, but almost all of the drugs and plastics and all the materials that we rely on for the modern world rely on fossil fuels. Even stuff like cement and steel and all the rest of it, you have to burn hydrocarbons to actually generate them. It's a recipe for a return to a medieval way of life. And these people have signed on to this. This is what bloody stupid Theresa May and her cronies signed on to without having any sort of scientific understanding. It's crazy.
How old is Theresa May?
She's got to be pushing my age, I guess. 60s, 70s.
She's probably older, so she's probably thinking it's not going to affect her anyway. So it's the younger generation that's going to suffer, because everything that's happened in the last 7 to 10 years has been a downward trend rather than a progression. Yeah, this just needs to stop. We're being fed a narrative by a bunch of people who I doubt whether they believe in it themselves, and it's just so frustrating.
No, they probably don't believe the lies that they're peddling, but they believe that the outcome is what is suitable for them, not necessarily for us. Oh, you've gone dark.
Someone's turned my lights off. There you go. We're back on.
Oh, okay.
Geoff buys bulbs.
Animals or children.
I mean, so we've covered this sort of the blueprint for what they want for 2050, which is not going to be acceptable to anybody, and government won't admit to this, but they spent 5 million of public money from this bunch of academics from Oxford, Cambridge universities, all the ivory tower bloody academics who actually don't know anything about science because they all read PPE and stuff like that, politics, philosophy and economics, and they come up with this garbage, but the government swallows it hook, line and sinker and is trying to enact it covertly. We're going to have to oik some people out and make them extremely embarrassed. Anyway, that's the first thing, and digital ID just fits in with all this, because if you actually want to control where people go and what they do, then you have to be able to use a monetary stick to stop them from going. And if you control their bank account and they go to the garage and say, "Oh, I'm going to fill it with fuel now," and nothing comes out the pump because the transaction's not been authorized because their digital ID not allowed to do it, then they can't go anywhere. And this is where this is all linked in. So maybe we should just sort of go on to digital ID and I mean, do you see that it's this a total control thing? It's got nothing whatsoever to do with trying to stop people coming in from the country illegally or trying to stop people working illegally. It's just about throttling freedom and freedom of movement, freedom of association for everybody.
Which is a pretty deep conspiracy theory, isn't it? I mean, it depends how far down the rabbit hole you want to go. But at the end of the day, if you could start by saying, "Oh, why have we got a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit on this road in Wales?" and finish up with, "By the way, your carbon credits mean you're not going to be able to buy any food this month." The two are actually a lot more connected, a lot more closely connected than people actually realise. The problem is with digital ID is the vast majority of people who haven't actually woken up in the last 5 years, and they're still out there, you know, as far as I'm concerned, if you've been paying attention in the last 5 years and you're still swallowing everything the news is telling you, then you've got something seriously wrong with your head. But I think we know that there's a lot of people out there that are actually like this. Digital ID is the last bastion. It is the final line of defense that we've got against a completely controlled, completely tracked, digitally managed society. I've been making videos on my channel about digital ID for the last couple of years, and I don't think people realize how much of a big deal it's going to be, because the vast majority of people, i.e. the useless eaters, will say things like, well, I'm not doing anything wrong, so I don't have a problem with it. But quite how it's going to do anything about stemming the flow of illegal migrants, well, it's not going to do anything, especially when the government that is proposing digital ID is the same government that is incentivizing all these people to come here. You want to stop illegal migration, remove the incentives to come here in the first place. We're a cold, depressing, grey country in the middle of the North Sea. The people that live here don't even want to be here. So why are these people from Africa coming here? We have nothing to offer them except money, and it's the government giving them the money. Stop giving them the money and they'll stop coming here. It's simple.
And the government's, robbing Peter to pay Paul, so to speak, because it's siphoning all the money out of our pockets and reducing our standard of living. And per capita, GDP per capita has not been growing for ages. And the current policy set is just driving the economy further down the pan.
So there you're at. My £180 for my speed awareness course that I'm going to be doing next week goes to pay for Mohammed, who's told everybody he's not a criminal when he arrived here. Oh no, I'm definitely not a criminal, right? And then himself a free phone in a hotel. I paid for that with my speed awareness course.
Well, I think Charlotte's got a couple of video clips that she wants to drop in here. So over to Charlotte.
Because we're constantly watching and recording everything that's going on. Citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and reporting everything that's going on. The first thing a country needs to do is to unify all of their data so it can be consumed and used by the AI model. You have to take all of your healthcare data, your diagnostic data, your electronic health records, your genomic data. The NHS in the UK has an incredible amount of population data, but it's fragmented. It's not easily accessible by these AI models. We have to take all of this data we have in our country and move it into a single, if you will, unified data platform so we provide context. When we want to ask a question, we've provided that AI model with all the data they need to understand our country. So that's the big step. That's kind of the missing link. We need to unify all of the national data, put it into a database where it's easily consumable by the AI model, and then ask whatever question you like.
First question I've got is, how do we get rid of them?
Exactly, yeah. Somewhere George Orwell's loving.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is you can't do it politically, and you can't do it legally, and you can't do it diplomatically. We've tried all that; it don't work.
Yeah.
You got to do what they did in Mexico. I've said this on one of my videos before. In Mexico, there was a local mayor who didn't do what they wanted him to do. So do you know what they did? They tied him to the back of a pickup truck and they dragged him through the street.
Right. Okay. So much for democratic risk. Having said that, apparently, is it Vietnam or somewhere they tried to, South Vietnam, I presume, they tried to impose digital ID, and basically people were hoarding money and they just refused and did everything with cash, and the whole thing collapsed. And that's what we need to do. We need to stop relying so much on the electronic transactions and use cash. Because
I agree. But
you can't track cash.
It's going to take the vast majority of the country to switch off EastEnders and actually look at what's going on around them. And I don't know how we achieve that, because over the last 5 years, there seems to be a massive decline in the general intelligence and the general awareness of the human population that lives in this country.
Totally
you can see it when you're
that.
out driving, because like the quality, the standard of driving on the roads has dramatically declined in the last 5 years. People just aren't awake anymore. And I mean that not in terms of, they're not conspiracy theorists. I mean, half the people seem to be just asleep most of the time. And they're not aware that this stuff is happening. Like, why is Tony Blair still there? Why hasn't something happened to him already? Why hasn't he been thrown in prison?
Why is he not behind bars?
Why are we still listening to this guy?
Exactly. Yeah. No, I'm with you, Geoff. I feel that there's been a marked sort of decline in the ability to think for yourself in the last 15 or so years.
Yeah.
People just don't seem to be able to embrace individuality and being able to sort of like live their lives. We're being treated like worker ants. That's what they want.
Absolutely, yeah. And even our so-called centres of learning, it's a place where you're taught what to think, instead of how to think. You're being indoctrinated rather than educated. It's very worrying.
It is worrying when the youngsters that are the ones that are going to have to carry the mantle of this and carry on what has to be the rebellion. They're busy working out which sex they are, and they can't understand which gender they are, and then they can't get on the housing market because they can't afford a deposit on the wage that they're on. And then even if they can, the house will be built by Persimmons and it'll fall down, or it'll be a half government share, and they'll find out in 5 years' time that they've actually got to pay the government back for the house that they bought. How's everybody getting on anymore? And honestly, if it seems like I'm not pulling any punches, I've done that many podcasts and talk shows and nothing's changed. And I'm at the stage now where somebody needs to come up with something really radical, because what's going to happen is all the radical people that want change will just leave the country. We'll just give up. Well, that's where we're at now.
Yeah. It is not good. It is not good. Okay. I think we maybe should park digital ID here, because I don't think there's much more we can do, and maybe pass on to the ideology behind phasing out internal combustion engine vehicles. I mean, from an operational point of view, I can't see any advantages for battery electric vehicles. It's all minuses and no pluses. And they keep showing these adverts about how exciting driving electric vehicles is and trying to jazz them up, showing them being shot up by like bloody space capsule and all the rest of it. Well, the damn things have only got 2 pedals, I think. And, one's very, very fast and the others stop or slow down. Where's the driving enjoyment in that? You might as well just have it's a super powered milk float.
Well, Geoff was talking about MacMaster earlier. Gentleman by the name of Lee, he does a lot of stuff on YouTube. Very entertaining chap, and he very much hates his Porsche Taycan. I think he's got, isn't it, Geoff? And hilarious the way he sort of totally vehemently hates electric vehicles is brilliant. So
this must have cost him a fair amount of money in the first place.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, those Taycans. I mean, I think what happened when Porsche saw that, and everybody saw the success of Tesla and how well Tesla was selling. What happened was the European manufacturers thought that the consumer was ready for electric cars, and therefore whatever product we knock out, they will buy, which meant that many of the European manufacturers put out electric cars that were not very well developed and not very good at being electric cars. Porsche decided that what they'd do is they'd just make one that was really good looking and really expensive, and as a result, it's sold. But most of the European manufacturers at the moment, they're absolutely up against the wall. You've got Volkswagen are nearly virtually bankrupt. BMW are not selling anywhere near as many EVs as they need to be. Mercedes has just axed a whole EV platform. And at the same time, what's happening is the British buyers, we're looking at these European cars and the way price inflation has happened over the last few years. And people are going, do you know what? I won't have a 3 Series. I'm going to have a JQ, which has just arrived on the boat from China instead. So the whole automotive industry in Europe is being handed to the Chinese because the Europeans have been caught napping.
Handed to them on a plate while they make them with coal-fired power stations.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Yeah. But the technology's flawed. You have to use a huge amount of resources to make the batteries. Because you're using carbon, the anodes, and all these metals, cobalt, lithium. Lithium, one of the most reactive alkaline metals, spontaneously combusts in contact with water. And in these thermal runaway reactions, basically, there's nothing you can do to stop them except just chuck the car in a skip and leave it to burn out. Because if you try and put water on it, it just makes it worse. Because you can put the thing in the sea and it'll still burn because the lithium's reacting with the water as well.
The thing is that there is something which I believe is this is an idea that I've just come up with. It's the optimum EV customer, right? And the optimum EV customer, they've got a good job. They may be earning £40,000 to £70,000 a year, and their EV is financed by their company, right? So it's a company car, so they haven't had to pay for it. The company has paid for them to have a charger installed at home, so they can charge at home as well. And they are charging on an Octopus Energy tariff, and their car charges between 2 and 6 in the morning, and they only use it to go to work, which is about 30 miles away. That is your ideal EV customer. The problem is, all the pro EV people online, they seem to be that exact ideal customer. That doesn't work for everybody. So they're trying to shoehorn this one size fits all. You can all have an EV. It's going to work for everyone. And it doesn't work that way. That's not the way a market works. So you've got these EVs that they're not selling on their benefits. They can't, the car dealerships can't sell them on the benefits of the cars themselves. So the only thing they've got left to sell them on is the price. And I was always taught when I worked in sales that a weak product competes on its price alone. And that's where we're at. Yes. You get a government grant. They give you a discount, they pay for your charger, and they're desperate to shift these things. If we just let the market decide what it wanted to do, if we removed all of the tariffs and everything, companies would go back to buying diesel Skoda Octavias tomorrow because they preferred them and they were cheaper to run, and the EV thing will fall flat on its arse in 24 hours. It's all propped up by hopes and dreams and government subsidies.
And what do we do when we come to HGVs? You know?
Well, that's another whole joke, isn't it? It doesn't work. It's quite simple. It just doesn't work. You cannot have, and the case in point with this one as well is, even on the light goods vehicles, there is no company that seems to have been able to make it work. We've seen all the hoo-ha. You know, you see the press release, Amazon has bought X amount of electric vans, and your first Amazon delivery in the morning, that's on the electric van. And then when they come up again in the afternoon, because your wife's been using your credit card, they're in a diesel van because the electric one is back at the depot on charge because it can't make a whole shift. And there's so many of these companies as well that they've been in the news. Oh, we've just bought an EV. We're going net zero. And then it turns out that they bought the EV pretty much just for that press release. And then it's parked down the back of the warehouse. And they're not even using it because it never worked. Look at the electric trash compactors, rubbish lorries, as we call them in the UK. You know, you have places like Nottingham. Nottingham spent a massive amount of money on electric rubbish trucks. They had a big thing. Oh, we're going to name these trucks. The public are going to name them. Going to be a competition. And then quietly, they got parked at the back of the yard because although they cost twice as much as the diesel ones, they don't work. And that is if they're not going up in flames.
Exactly. Yeah. That's one of the other things. I mean, there's quite a few. There was a thing came out today about the bus fleet. It was Montreal. Was it Montreal or somewhere? One of the buses, which was a battery electric vehicle, went up in flames. So they basically took the whole fleet offline, including the majority of which were diesel, to disguise the fact that it was a battery electric vehicle that had actually self-ignited. So feeding us so much rubbish, and operational efficiency of these things must be terrible. I mean, my background was in chemical industry sales, and I cut my teeth, you know, traveling 50,000 miles a year. And if I'd had to stop every 100 miles or whatever to top up the vehicle's battery and wait for 45 minutes or whatever, my call rate would have dropped through the floor, and I would have got a right intensive coaching session from my boss, shall I say.
And your boss would have been moaning about how much he was spending, because each time you're out on a public charger, it costs quite substantially more than running a diesel car. So you're getting less range, you've got more cost. My favourite is the ferries. Have you heard some of these stories about the ferries?
Oh, yes, Caledonian McBrain, is it?
There's the Caledonian one, So there was Nicola Sturgeon decided that the ferry fleet was going to go net zero. So that was a good one. There was another brilliant one in Germany where they'd had there's one passable route where they'd been using an old diesel ferry for years. You're talking decades. And this thing just worked. Anyway, a new mayor came in and he said, what we should do is we should have one that runs on electric and solar. Bear in mind, they've got a similar climate to us. So they spent an absolute fortune replacing this diesel ferry. They sold the ferry for cheap at an auction, the diesel one. Spent a fortune on this new ferry that had a solar panel on the roof. When they put it in operation, not only were the batteries not strong enough, but because of the solar panel on the roof, it was acting like a sail and blowing the ferry off course. So it couldn't even work doing the trip, but they'd already sold the existing diesel one. So this goes on a little while, and the detour, if you can't get on the ferry, is like 20 miles. And in the end, what they did was they had to go back to the guy that they'd sold the diesel ferry to and say, excuse me, do you think we could buy that ferry back? And he said, yeah, fine, but it was at 10 times the price. So he sold it something like 18 months later for a massive profit. They then had to pay to refit that ferry to put it back in service to get back to where they started with the original ferry.
Well,
brilliant.
There's a similar thing also in Dover, because they wanted to use an electric ferry to replace the existing ones going across the channel. And the stumbling block they hit was, well, apart from just the deficiencies of electric vessels themselves, they didn't have enough. They didn't have a substation that had enough power to actually charge the damn things up. So that's parked at the moment, I think, until the grid is uprated. I mean, this is one of the other problems with electrifying the whole vehicle fleet, because all of the substations and all of the connections, you know, if you're going to charge up an electric vehicle efficiently, you have to totally revise the grid connections. And then, of course, you've got to connect some bloody wind farm in the Orkneys using hundreds and hundreds of miles of copper wire underwater and all the rest of it, then overland, to actually get the power to the grid where it's needed in London, where all these yuppies driving these bloody Teslas are. It's just not going to work, and the resources you're going to consume doing it are going to exhaust world quantities of it for decades to go, and that is only for the UK. If you factor in America and all the other places, it's just not going to happen. This is where I think the conspiracy theorists score a pretty good point. Actually, they've got a great goal on this one, because the question is, have we got the resources and the capabilities, and indeed, you know, the raw materials to move everybody who has a car in the UK over to an electric car? And the answer is, well, no. So clearly the goal must be to get rid of a massive amount of cars. And that's where we go back to that UK fires thing that we looked at earlier in the podcast, where you go, hold on a minute. Maybe if we, and again, the conspiracy theorist is going, they're going to get rid of the people. It seems to be the only way they're going to do it. Yeah. It does seem to point that way. It's a quite scary scenario, but interesting.
That's why we're gearing up for World War III. You see, that'll get rid of it.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah,
well,
there
you go.
Yeah. Let's upset old Vladimir Putin and go from there. Yeah.
That's what you need.
Yeah. I think we should take a break now, because I think we're about halfway through, or maybe, our discussions, and I think Charlotte wants to put some advertising copy in.
Go for the advert.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Basil Valentine, and this is Unprecedented TV, unfiltered, uncensored, unprecedented, the home of free speech here on the internet. Do please like and subscribe over.
Okay, good. So on the second half here, and might be a bit shorter than the first, because I think we've covered a lot of the second set of questions in the first half. Take us through your experience with this this chap you were talking to about fuel efficiency, range extending catalyst, in effect, for conventional fuels that improved fuel efficiency and reduced emissions. The guy got squashed. Basically, he's been given the runaround by government agencies, by fuel manufacturers, by automotive manufacturers.
Yeah, and oh, you've frozen there. So this goes back a sort of self-published A4 document arrived with me, and I can't remember how I got it. And it was called Fuel Conspiracy, and it was by this chap Andrew Knott. And I made a note to give him a call, and then when I finally got around to chatting to him, I sort of said, you know what, you need to just come on the channel and talk through your book and everything you've been through and explain it to viewers. So that's what's been on the channel the last couple of weeks. So fuel catalysts, they're not. The interesting thing is, this is not new technology. This is tech that was developed, you know, World War II. We're looking at.
Yeah.
So they go on a really interesting journey where in the media and in car media particularly, these things are the best things since sliced bread, right up until the point that they're not. And there's a distinct change where it looks like Castrol or someone has got involved with some money. And from that moment on, all the companies making these fuel catalysts found it incredibly hard to market them. And even Andrew now, he's so muzzled into what he can and can't say on an advert. You know, if he wants to place a print advert, there's very little that he can actually say, which again is why not many people have heard of them today. A lot of people would say, oh, I remember these from being around 30 years ago. Well, yeah, you probably saw an advert 30 years ago, but since then, it's been incredibly difficult to get the message across. So the science of it is quite complicated, but it's also simple, but nobody can actually explain it. However, the testimonials that I'm getting from people. So I've had a guy that said, I watched your video with Andrew. I fitted 6 to my Mercedes Vito, and it's already running better and returning better fuel economy. We've been running them in my wife's car for the last week or so. And I said to her earlier on, what was your average fuel normally? Because I reset it when we installed them. And she said it was around 52 miles to the gallon average. Well, we're now getting 55, 56. So they clearly work, even if I can't fully explain the science. There's a lot of people that have emailed me and said these do work. But the fact that he's been shut down by the industry over so many years, it is fascinating, the story of it.
Yeah. Well, certainly one of our contacts, Howard Cox from Fairfuel UK, he got involved in this area as well. He was trying to get a catalyst off the ground, but again, he met huge resistance. And my own personal experience in the past, the industry I worked for, the titanium pigment industry, we had a byproduct that was an organotitanate, and a guy who was an ABD member, a guy called Mike Bingley, he's dead now. He was in fact an ex-fighter pilot, and he may have come across this sort of thing due to, you know, what you mentioned, the Second World War experience, but he developed a catalyst based on this organotitanate that improved fuel economy, emissions, that massively reduced emissions, but he couldn't get it off the ground, and he got, you know, strong arm by industry, by the fuel companies, and by the manufacturers. It's too cozy a cartel, and I mean, apparently, from what I saw, this guy had actually produced reports showing how good it was, and was it Rover? The dealers were actually recommending using these catalysts in their cars until they got the word from on high, oh, don't do that. And then suddenly all the witch reports and all the information came out just rubbishing these things, but without ever actually providing the evidence to prove that they were rubbish. And they wouldn't do the testing, which would have proved it, because it wouldn't have proved it. It would have proved the opposite.
It's quite fascinating. I think it's very similar to, you know, in the tobacco industry, where the big tobacco kind of realised that they didn't need to prove that tobacco was perfectly safe, but all they needed to do was sow a seed of doubt in the fact that, you know, the scientists, oh, well, they might have done something wrong, or the study might be this, that, the other, and then people have that element of doubt. And it's been so incredibly difficult to get this fuel catalyst stuff seriously considered by people, because people are so heavily influenced by the stuff that was put out there by what was essentially big oil. And it's been fascinating to read the comments as well on the videos. The amount of people that have just commented on the video to say something like, oh, well, that's a load of rubbish. And you go, hang on a minute. There's a chap here sat in my car who's got 300 pages of documents from all manner of different places saying that this isn't a load of rubbish. But you can come on the channel and say, this is a load of rubbish. Well, I don't mind you coming on the channel and saying this is a load of rubbish, but bring 300 documents that prove it, and then we'll talk. It's quite fascinating that even you'd expect that my viewers would be able to get over that bias, but they can't at all. It's what we've been told. And like you say, these things were available in Rover dealerships. Rover was selling them directly, saying they work, up until the point someone said to them, actually, we'd rather sell a reconditioned head for your engine at £300 than that thing at 28 quid. Yeah. And you go, oh, yeah, well, that makes sense then, doesn't it? That's why they changed the tune. Yeah, because
this is when the part of the changeover period was when leaded fuel was being phased out and unleaded.
Yeah, that's right.
And these additive capsules basically allowed cars that were supposed to be only be able to run on leaded petrol, they ran on unleaded and gave better fuel economy and better emissions without any cylinder head damage or any of the other, valve seat wear, all the other stuff that came with the unleaded fuels in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. and the battle that Andrew has had to try and get this stuff across. He was thrilled to bits to be able to put it on the YouTube channel the other day, because that's the biggest audience he's been able to reach in a don't know how long, because your hands are tied. You can't do advertising for it. You can't make any claims. You can't say anything about it. And yet we see companies getting away with this left, right and centre.
Yeah, it's not good. I mean, we need... It's one of these things. You need a objective body regulating this and doing the necessary. What's the German TUV? Is it in Germany?
TUV, yeah.
Testing. We should have an organisation like that does proper unbiased testing, not influenced by major auto manufacturers or auto parts. The industry, because of course, if you're selling, replacement cylinder heads, you don't want something that allows you to actually avoid doing that for a few coppers instead of several £100, and the labour and the VAT and all the rest of it. Yeah. So, interesting.
Yeah. So we'll see if they work when we finally get round to doing this John O'Groats to Land's End challenge.
You can test it out.
The thing is, we debated doing John O'Groats to Land's End. As I say, there's a number of reasons as to why we're not doing it this week, but we've both kind of decided that we'd rather just drive down to the bottom of Spain. It's more enjoyable. So instead of doing a John O'Groats to Land's End rematch, you might find that we do another, because we've done a race to Benidorm, which was Volvo against EV.
That was brilliant.
I've seen that again. So it might be that we test out these fuel catalysts on a run down to Benidorm.
Well, you just get your John O'Groats to Land's End mileage and just drop it somewhere else, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Without having to drive all the way up there.
Yeah. Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this. I think we'll just finish.
Go on. Sorry. Go on.
I was going to say, should we just finish with one thing, which is about the residual value of BEVs?
Oh, this is a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. What's your thoughts, Geoff?
Well, they're borderline worthless. So we can jump the gun here, because I've got a video that is due to come out on this. There's a case of someone sent me a link to an electric Mercedes Sprinter van that was coming up and going through auction. And I thought, well, that looks interesting. What I'll do is I'll have a look at what it sells for and the mileage, and then for a video, I'll find a diesel version that was built in the same year and sold in the same year, and I'll do the maths and see how well each person would have come out. So I got my scenario ready, waiting for this auction to finish, and both vans were about 50 and a bit £1,000 when they were new. The electric one was more expensive, but they're both around about 50 grand, right? So the electric van that was in this auction, it had done 8,000 miles, and it went through the auction at £8,000. The diesel equivalent that I found was for sale, and when I did the maths, right, and I always think about my friend Lee with his electric Porsche, and for the purposes of a video, I was using Lee. So I thought, well, if Geoff had bought the diesel model and Lee had bought the electric model on the same day, and we'd done the same number of miles, where would we both be financially? And for that Mercedes van, the answer was, I would be £45,000 better off over just 4 years. The depreciation on that electric van was that bad that it meant if you bought the diesel, you're more than 40 grand better off. But not only that, the mileage on the diesel was 3 times the mileage of the electric van. So I would have used the diesel one 3 times as much and still ended up £40,000 better off after 4 years. Now, 40 grand over 4 years, that's a ton of money, isn't it? And someone is picking up this bill. We're at the stage now where all these companies have been incentivized into all these EVs by the government. There's going to come a point where fleet managers and finance managers at these big companies that buy fleet cars for their staff, they're going to have to turn around and say, this isn't working. We're losing too much money because the residuals are just not there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's become a consumable rather than something that you can sell on.
Yeah, they're throwaway products now. They really are. You can't work on them. The parts are ridiculous. I spoke to a friend of mine the other day who's bought a Tesla. Do you know how much a replacement windscreen was on his Tesla when he got a chip on it? £1,700. It's insane. That's more than the cost of the van that I'm sitting in.
Yeah.
It can't last forever. There must come a point where fleet managers say enough is enough. We need to go back to the diesel Octavias.
Yeah, but I mean, the other thing is finding somebody to service the damn thing anyway. Because one of my wife's best friend, her husband, got the electric bug and thought it was going to be brilliant, but he had a problem. It was an electric Audi, And and we're here on the northeast coast, Middlesbrough area. The nearest place he could find to get it serviced if anything went wrong was Lancaster or somewhere. It was like 2 hours drive.
Well, I was told that Volkswagen nationally only have 3 locations that can do repairs and maintenance on the electric vehicles. So that means wherever you've purchased your EV, it's got to go back to one of those 3 locations. So they don't have EV servicing in every dealer, which is why you're having those problems.
Yeah, the whole thing just doesn't stack up. Doesn't make any sense. And
it doesn't. It doesn't make sense on any level, and we just have to see how it plays out, really.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of manufacturers that are going to end up going to the wall or amalgamating, contracting to try to be credible in terms of volume and brands. I think they have to consolidate a load of brands and stuff like that. Otherwise, they're just going to get picked off by the Chinese. One of the other things, just on this, because I know we're close to finishing now, I wonder, all these manufacturers selling Chinese BEVs. I recall one of my late best friends, he died unfortunately. He was working for the Swedish forklift truck manufacturer Atlet. And when the Chinese and Japanese came into that market, if you bought a new truck from them and traded in the old one, they cut the old one up so it couldn't go into the used market. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's happening at dealership level now with internal combustion engine vehicles that are traded in against electric.
I think we might get there. What's interesting as well is I've got a good friend who does all of my mechanicking, and he sources cars for customers. So he's on a lot of these trade-only auctions. And he was talking to an auction house the other day, and this is not like classic car auctions. This is not Ferraris and Lamborghinis. This is your run-of-the-mill stuff. And the auctioneer said to him, so you've got the cap value in the auction. The cap value is what they, what it should be worth, basically. Yeah. So as a car comes through auction, you can go, oh, well, what's the cap value? The cap value is X. So it'll probably go through the auction at X plus or minus a little bit. The auctioneer has said to him on the diesel stuff, particularly diesel commercial stuff, so vans and pickups, he said, you might as well check the cap value out the window now. And he showed me a screenshot of a diesel Volkswagen Caddy van. The cap value that it should have gone for on the auction was $11,600. The winning bid was £18,000. So what's happening is in the second-hand auctions, people want the diesels, and that's driving the prices up. But nobody's talking about that.
Yeah.
And I suppose they're stockpiling these vehicles for the future because, who knows when we won't be able to buy them all. Yeah.
But the thing is as well, the car market has priced itself so ridiculously now. If you want to buy a brand new van, let's say you're a plumber or tradesman or whatever, you need to go and buy a brand new van. You're not going to get much change from £50,000 now on the forecourt. So you're much more likely to do something like go to my friend Luke and say, Luke, can you find me a really good van? And then he'll go in the auction and say, well, yes, I can, but we're going to need to pay over the odds because everybody wants them now. Because they don't want to pay 50 grand for a new one. So the industry's in a really interesting position where it's not just EVs that's going to kill the industry. It is greed, and it is inflation, and it is a little bit, cars have been great for some years now. You don't necessarily need to replace your car anymore because your car's probably going to last. So we're in a really interesting position where the industry's under attack from multiple places, and this whole EV China thing is just going to undermine the lot and rip the rug out from beneath us.
Yeah, well, I mean, I watched the thing you did on. You were looking at, you wanted a 5 Series estate, and
it was a popular video that was, and I was surprised.
Absolutely, because I mean, I'm driving a 3 Series estate, and it's a BM, so and I was thinking, well, if that's how few models are, because I wanted a diesel 4-wheel drive estate, and I thought, well, this is ridiculous because there was only one you could find, and the cheapest one was 53 grand or something. I think it was just a crazy number.
And the other side of that is as well, when the newspapers come out and say, oh, look how many electric vehicles have sold this month. Yeah, look, there was hardly any diesels that sold. And you go, hang on a minute. It's because they're not on offer. I can't go and buy a BMW 5 Series diesel, then the figures don't count. Because I wanted a 5 Series diesel, but I couldn't have one.
Yeah. Crazy. And then there's the basic one, you still needed to add stuff and, the extras that you wanted just to get it to sort of reasonable spec, pushed it even further up, 58 or something, I think.
And then you've got the insanity of luxury car tax, meaning for the first 5 years, you're paying an extra tax just because you paid more money on your car. I think we're going to reach a stage where the government will just everything will be taxed, and I mean like moving, scratching your eyebrow. Oh, you put a hat on today. Have you paid the hat tax? You got out of bed on the left side.
Scratch your nose. That's not allowed today.
That's where we're headed to. And with digital ID, they'll be able to do it. Your digital ID and your geofencing on your phone. So you got out of bed on the left side, and it's more expensive to do that.
It's a right side day today. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a right side day today. So
we're all looking forward to.
Here
comes November. We're all looking forward to it.
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely,
yes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm done pulling punches now. Take your number plates off and start a fire. That's all we got.
Geoff,
Right.
it's been absolutely brilliant.
It's been brilliant. It's an excellent show. Thanks very much for coming on. We'll have to do this again soon. If you've got some burning topic that you want to kick around with us, please do. We'll be really pleased to see you. Thanks very much.
I'll wait till I've done my speed awareness course, then I'll come back to you.
Brilliant.
It's a deal.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Thanks, Geoff.